family up here.
Ms. Jackson, go ahead and get your family together. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fellow board members, tonight we have the opportunity to have Ms. Carly Jackson be installed as for District 6. And we're glad to have you aboard. Welcome to the this is like a family, so welcome to the family. That's all I have to say. So at this time, we'd like to have the swearing in.
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent on me
and perform all the duties incumbent on me
as St. Bernard Parish School Board Member, District 6,
as St. Bernard Parish School Board Member, District 6,
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now we have to sign everything.
Congratulations.
Now it's official.
Right, you need a pen?
Yeah, I was thinking of
Okay.
first. Thank you. Wait, Wyatt, come back. We're going to take a picture.
You look very happy.
What,
Oh my goodness. Where are we going to go?
Over here, he said, if you're going to be school board member, does that mean I get discount on my donuts? That was Abby that said that?
Yeah, you good?
Okay. All right. So you need to sign here.
Yeah, Barrett, take a picture while she signs.
Is that blue ink? Use blue ink. I have blue. Yeah, we have blue. Okay, and then I need to, for me, this 9th day of April,
And Carly, would you introduce your children to us?
2019.
This is Wyatt. Say hi.
How you doing, Wyatt?
Where does he go to school?
He is 6. He goes to Paul. He's in
Okay,
first grade.
great.
And this is Abby.
Hi, Abby.
He's 9.
She's 10, and she goes to Lacoste as well.
Okay.
And this is Haley, and she's a senior this year. She's graduating
From
Shamrock.
Shamrock? Okay,
And
great.
she's in 4th grade.
Yeah, I am.
No, I was talking about Abby.
What?
Abby's in 4th grade.
Yes, Abby's in 4th grade.
Okay, I think this is, I don't think I need anything else on here. All right, we got you both in original, okay. All right, well then let's do it again. Yeah, I don't have to do anything. Thank you.
No, stop. You can go home now after we take a picture. We're going to take more, and then you can go. Okay? Can I button this?
Wish my name was shorter. Okay. I think it's official.
There you go.
Let me see, I think she needs to sign that. There's a second spot for you to sign right here, and it really has to do with the stuff that you're going to receive from the state.
Okay.
There you go. I think that's all we need. If I need another one, I'll get what I need from you.
Okay.
Library.
The library, let's see. We're meeting Thursday afternoon. The library consultant has put together a program based on our public forums, and it's a lot of things I don't understand, but I can pick out carpet, so that's my job. So it's we're going to go over everything, the things that people want in the library, and we'll discuss whether it's feasible, you know, whether we can afford it.
Right.
So I'm excited.
We're good.
We're moving on.
Keep it going. So, okay. Ms. Jackson. Have a seat.
Yeah, let's get one picture with your family before you go.
Wyatt.
You got Wyatt?
Come back.
Wyatt, one more picture, and then we'll leave you, baby.
Huh? You want to take the board and have a picture with the...
No, you guys stand right here so they can see
Huh?
you.
We're gonna take
You
it.
can't stand right there. Come over here. You gotta get in the middle.
One more picture, you can sit down.
That's it. This is the last one.
Stand right
Like
here.
it.
All right,
Because you
3,
can't, right here.
2, 1.
Call the general committee meeting to order. Will everybody please rise for the prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather here this evening. We ask a special blessing upon our school district family as we celebrate outstanding students and employees this week at our Celebrating Our School Community Banquet. Thank you for sending these people our way. We also ask a special blessing upon our students and staff as we're approaching the Easter break and celebrating the coming of spring. Please be with those who are traveling at that time and return them safely to us as we begin the countdown to the end of the school year. These things we ask in your name.
Ms. Dysart, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Voce, roll call, please.
Mrs. Acevedo? Here. Mr. Campbell is not with us. Mr. Egan? Here. Mrs. Jackson? Here. Mrs. Lemoyne? Here. Mrs. Dysart? Here. Mr. England?
Here.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Here. Mr. Warner?
Here.
Mrs. White?
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Voce. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, Super News. Mr. Lemoyne, where's Barry at?
Happy Super News Tuesday. We're about to get into the really busy season. As you know, we got the banquet tomorrow night, and then from here on out, it's going to be all of the concerts and the plays and all the good things, but you'll see that in the next Super News. For now, you're going to see history being made as we have a very special co-host on this edition of Super News. So, Mr. Jackson, take it away. And now, from the desk of the superintendent's office, it's time for Super News.
Hello, I'm Jack Jackson.
And I'm Barry Lemoyne, and welcome to Super News, the show that takes a look back at all the good things happening in our school system.
We'll kick things off with some high kicking from our Summit Owl Chalmers. Recently, the team traveled to Orlando to compete, and we are proud to announce that the Chalmers were named as the National High Kick Champion for 2019. Congratulations to Jill Mitchell and her hard-working Chalmers.
The Chalmette High School Marching Band was also in Orlando recently, leading the daytime parade through the Magic Kingdom on Mardi Gras Day. The trip was the exclamation point in a great carnival season, where the band won the Rhythm of the Route in 2 different marching competitions. Congratulations to Jason Rusk and his talented musicians.
And now it's time for the first of our 2 on-location Super News segment for today.
Hello, I'm Rosalind White, the school board member representing District 10, and it is my pleasure to introduce the Super News team at CF Riley, where a focus on student behavior and student achievement help ensure that all students realize growth and success. So let's learn more as we head there now, to the home of the Rockets.
Hello, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Lana. Welcome to Raleigh, home of the Rockets.
We are here to share some of the good news taking place here, like our Middle School Student of the Week program, the brainchild of our Teacher of the Year, Michelle Folan. This program recognizes 6th, 7th, and 8th graders for excelling academically or behaviorally or both.
Students who work hard to improve or progress towards their chosen goals are honored with a homemade lunch provided by the middle school teachers.
Students of the Week are announced on Mondays, and those students share in the home-cooked meal with the teacher who nominated them. The students have enjoyed some awesome culinary delights since the program began last year.
Raleigh is also very proud of its effort to increase the number of career, credentials, and certifications that enable students to meet their requirement for their Jumpstart Career Diploma. Since the 2016 school year, Raleigh has been offering coursework from the OSHA Microsoft Customer Service and FEMA credentials to the students here.
This has dramatically increased the number of diplomas that Raleigh students achieve each school year. More importantly, earning these credentials enables students to increase their chances of being hired in the workforce upon graduation.
In other news, our principal, Ms. Fonafons, recently traveled to Fort Worth, Texas at Karen Purvis Institution of Child Development. There she earned her certification as a TBRI practitioner. There were over 500 applications nationwide and only 150 candidates were chosen to participate in the intense 5-day training.
TBRI stands for Trust-Based Relational Intervention. It is a holistic trauma-informed program designed to meet the complex needs of vulnerable children. The intervention promotes strength in the face of trauma and offers practical tools for parents, caregivers, teachers, or anyone who works with children. It helps children reach their highest potential.
Ms. Bonifant looks forward to working alongside St. Bernard Middle School counselor Paul Tran and Mello Elementary special education teacher Shelby Bird to promote TBRI and train teachers to implement these principles into their classroom. She is grateful to the St. Bernard Parish School Board for providing the support to her and her colleagues to participate in this valuable program.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for joining us on Super News, and now back to you guys in the studio.
Nice job, Rockets. Oh, and speaking of nice, how about that Special Olympics this year? It was truly a special day for our schools and community. Hosted by the school board and held at Chalmette High School's Bobby Nuss Stadium, the games had scores of athletes with special needs competing in a variety of track and field events. Local community leaders, businesses, and other governmental agencies joined the members of the school board for the opening ceremony as athletes processed into loud cheers from family, friends, and fans. After the national anthem and a brief welcome from Superintendent Doris Foche, it was time for the games to begin. It was a great day, and we'd like to congratulate all who participated and the special athletes who make the games possible each year.
We would also like to give thanks to the members of the High Flying Owl Club who visited the school board recently to make a special donation, a check for the academic games. Our teams compete in the national tournament later this month, and this gift will help cover the team's travel and competition expenses. Thank you to the High Flying Owls for your generosity in support of our academic games program.
Members of the Chalmette High School High Flying Owl Fund stepped in with a very, very generous donation, as they have done for years since this fund has been established, and they've done this for many of the programs at the high school. And when they heard about this, they were more than willing to step in and help fund this academic endeavor.
We'd also like to offer congratulations to Chris Deere and Erin Johnston, two of our district-wide Teachers of the Year, who were recently honored as such by the American Petroleum Institute. The API recognized these two outstanding educators for their commitment to teaching, resourcefulness, professional involvement, and community service, or put more simply, for the positive impact Chris and Erin make on their students each day. Congratulations, and thank you for representing our district so well.
And now let's hear from another one of our school board members who will introduce our next Super News team.
Hello, I'm Catherine Lemoyne, the school board representative of District 1, and I am proud to introduce the Super News team at J.F. Goche Elementary School. I spent part of my teaching career there, serving as its reading coach, and enjoyed being part of the tight-knit community that truly care for children. So let's head east and meet the dynamic duo who will share the Super News from Goche Elementary.
Hi, I'm Maddie Russo. And I'm Marley McCluskey, and we are happy to share with you all of the good things happening in our school. We'll start things off with a salute to our Slingers heritage. Members of our art club recently took a field trip to the museum complex to learn more about the history of our ancestors. While visiting, our young artist also sketched some of the buildings and artifacts that are part of the grounds. It was a great way to bring art to life. Guests from the Canary Islands also visited our school, sharing their love of music with us. Songs, movement, and dance were all a part of the fun. You know, Marley, I tried to teach my dog to dance, but he was terrible. I guess it's because he has 2 left feet. In other news, members of Miss Gaylot's 5th grade art club continued its tradition of painting the ceiling tiles that are displayed in the art room. This is the 6th year this has happened, and we are happy to say that our artwork there is definitely looking up.
Our 2nd graders also celebrated some of what makes our state so great when it held its annual Louisiana Cultural Festival. This is an end of the unit activity, and it brings together 3 important elements: all of the unique features of our Pelican State, all of our 2nd graders, and some hands-on learning.
Well, that's about all we have time for today.
But before we go, I just want to congratulate my friend Maddie Russo, who was named as Goche Student of the Year.
Thanks, Marley, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll see you next time here at Goche. Bye!
Nice job, Maddie and Marley. We're going to keep an eye on those hurricanes. And before we take our curtain call today, let's take a quick look at the members of the St. Bernard Middle School's curtain call, the school's drama club, who recently performed Disney's Beauty and the Beast Jr. at the Cultural Arts Center.
Beauty and the Beast, tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast? Enough about us. That's about all the time we have for today. But before we go, let's see some of the fun that was part of the recent spring concert. The Summit High School band and performers from the Talented Music program teamed up for this night of movie music and magic.
Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Super News, where we always let the
Super News roll.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
So even though Miss Schneider's still on maternity, she's still sending a lot of the jokes in, so we really appreciate her doing that for us. But it's going to dry out, and then next time we'll be here, we'll have Chalmette High School and Lacoste Elementary.
So you didn't have no hand in those jokes?
No, sir.
No.
Jack and Alex, I'm just a pretty face. You know?
Yeah.
But y'all did a fantastic job. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 is education. Ms. Lemoyne.
Thank you, Mr. England. Agenda item number 5 is the summer reading program, and we have Ms. Harleton joining us tonight.
I'm back.
Every year, and since I've been working in this parish, we try to instill a love of reading in all of our students, and we do that through a lot of avenues, but one of the things we do is encourage kids to read as much as they possibly can. And in kindergarten, teachers read to them, in 1st grade teachers read to them, and 5th grade teachers read to them. But we also have children reading independently, and we are looking forward to a great year with children reading. So what we have done for the past few summers is every year we have a summer summer grade recovery program at Davies Elementary School and at Chalmette High School for the middle and high school students. And we use the library at Davies to open it up through those dates, May 30th through June 21st, for any child in kindergarten through 5th grade, through 12th grade that can come and take an AR test. Now what we do is we're going to give the kids going into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades at the elementary school this sheet, which gives them the list of books that they can read. What I did is I purchased these books, the paperbacks, and every school has copies of the paperbacks if the kids can't afford to buy them. And we also have copies of them at Davies Elementary School, so that if they want to read, they can read because the books are there. We then, on the second page, we asked them to fill out a little sheet of what the summary was of the book, or the two books that they read, and then they get extra credit when they come back in the fall. And the next two pages give you the reading list for middle school, and then the last one is high school. So we do try to instill a love of reading, a love for reading in all of our students. And again, we're going to open the Davies Library for AR testing while we're there for summer grade recovery.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Thank you for your hard work throughout the year overseeing all the literacy programs. And I know a lot of thought goes into choosing these texts for
Yes.
each grade level that are grade level appropriate. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we let the librarians and some of the teachers get together and decide on what books would be appropriate. And what we did, I knew that a lot of the children probably wouldn't be able to afford the books, or they don't have somebody to take them to Barnes and Noble or to a store to buy them. So that's why we purchased the books, and we purchased them 2 summers ago. Also, they can go to the library because a lot of these books are on the shelf of the library, so they can read it there too, but they can take the test at Davies after they do it, or they can come back in the fall and take the test if they don't get to Davies during that time. But yeah, we did age appropriate, and we have a Lexile level that we look at for each book, and that's how we judge that.
Wonderful. So if a child doesn't have transportation to the Davies Library, they can still receive the extra credit due in the
Sure.
log.
And the only thing we do ask is that if a child comes, somebody come with them, like a parent come to the school with them, because we do have the summer skills going on in the other part of the school, so they stay in the library area.
So all the testing will happen at Davies?
Yes, for all schools. But again, we didn't want to penalize any children who couldn't afford to buy the
Right.
books.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Mr. Long?
Ms. Halton, I read an article recently, and it may not affect the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, but there's a big movement toward digital books. Do you find that's something that we're going to be looking at?
Possibly, and you know, we do a lot of things digitally in our schools. I mean, the kids took a social studies test today. They just kept reading through a computer-based test. So we do a lot digitally. As far as books, no, we haven't gotten to that yet. But Mary, do y'all have any plans for that in the near future?
Not
at middle and high? No.
Yeah,
we put links.
We put a lot of links in Google Classroom, and students click on the links and get to digital articles and primary source documents for social studies as well.
Right.
So students do quite a bit of
Quite a
reading
bit of-
online. We have not moved to the digital books.
Okay.
And they practice this all year long, going through lots of documents and, you know, lots of things on a computer that they have to find, like, just keep going through.
I won't say the springboard.
You can notice that Ms. Halton was of the age where
I'm
there
very
was
animated.
no.
No,
So I should-
You know, but I'm almost as good as Miss Voce is now.
Pretty good.
I would just like to add, the Springboard 6th through 12th grade English and Math does have a Springboard online edition. So the students do have the book in their hands, but there also is an online edition they can access from home or anywhere on the internet. And the teacher can also put notes in what they call a class copy that students can access from home. So we do have a dual system at this point.
And our curriculum, Wit Wisdom and CKLA, have links at home too. Like they can, parents can link onto that. And Eureka has a link, you know, so we're linked up.
So they can
And it would-
access all the books from home.
It would seem like that would be great for families that maybe can't afford to buy the hard copy books. You know, you mentioned
A
that.
lot of them come in paperback, though. They do come in paperback. But you buy some of the books for the schools?
Yes, we
They
have the
them
books,
at the middle
we
and
have
high
the
school,
physical
too.
copies of the books, and many books are online, but they are for a cost. There are some
Right.
books that are no cost, but many of the online books,
Yes.
less of a cost than the paperback edition, but there is also
I
still a
know,
cost.
I was reading online. I was using my iPad to like download books, and I couldn't believe how much money I was spending doing that. You know, it was like, whoa. You know, it was cheaper to buy the book, to be honest with you.
Oh,
But,
okay.
you know, because some of them are free, but not all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Ms. Dysart?
And you said the library has these books also? If the
She
students
always
wanna go
asks
check
me
out-
what our list is, and I'll send it to her. They may not have all of them, but they do have some of them.
Okay.
So I'll get in touch with her.
So that's a possibility?
Yeah,
that they can
I'll
go
get in
and
touch
check
with
them
her.
out. Okay, good. Thanks.
Any other questions? And we'll have a copy of these lists on the website too for any
Yes.
parents that want to download an extra copy.
We send them, we actually attach them to the report card.
Right.
You know, okay?
Thank you so
Anything
much.
else? Okay.
Okay, agenda item number 6 is an executive item. Mr. Long.
Thank you, Ms. Lemoyne. Item 6, increased MFP resolution. Mr. Voce, I'm sure you can
Okay.
handle this one.
Right, I'm going to handle this one. As we all know, the MFP is the basic funding mechanism for state funding for K-12 education. And every year, the Bessie Board puts together an MFP formula to the tune of about $3.5 billion. It's the responsibility of the Bessie Board to construct the formula and send it to the legislature, as we all know, for approval or rejection. They cannot modify it in any way. They must either approve it or reject it. If it's rejected, it comes back to the Bessie Board for further modification, or if they do not pass anything that legislative session, it reverts back to the prior year funding formula. Now, the governor, who has a major focus on education this year and looking at salaries for teachers and other school employees, has realized, as we all have known for many years, that teachers have not gotten a raise from the state in 10 years, 1 in 10 years. And they are below the Southern Regional average. School support employees as well. So what the governor indicated in his executive proposal was to put in a pay raise for teachers and support personnel, $1,000 per teacher, $500 for support personnel. That will take the state to fund that a total of about $101 million. In addition to that, in the major part of the funding formula, he is recommending a per pupil increase on what's called the level 1. Normally, it should be a 2.75% increase. That's what it was anticipated to be when this formula was put into place, but in the last 10 years, the only increase has been once, and it's been half that at a 1.375 increase. So he is also recommending that the formula include a per pupil funding increase of a 1.375%. That will help fund some of the additional expenses that we look at each and every day. While the $1,500 raise comes into effect, it does not, while it covers it also includes the employer portion for the retirement system. It does not include the other employer expenses such as Medicare, such as workers' comp. Expenses will go up, unemployment expenses will go up, because that is directly proportional to your payroll. So none of that is included in the pay raise, which would mean that the local systems would have to pick up those employer-related costs as well. The other types of things that we provide, like the curriculum, like the technology, like transportation, maintenance, nursing services, all of those other things that we are mandated to provide are included in that per pupil cost, that we have not had an increase in so many years. That is as important a part of the formula for our school system as is the pay raises themselves. Now, the Bessie Board, in having the governor signal that he was amenable to including both portions in the formula, went ahead and incorporated them in and sent it over to the legislature. So Bessie did this in March. It has been sent over to the legislature for consideration. There is going to be probably a fight within, as always is, within the legislature on are they going to adopt as is or try to get that modified. There has been a lot of discussion among legislators that they are in favor of the pay raises, but some of our more conservative representatives are not in favor of the per pupil increase. The per pupil increase has been estimated to be anywhere from $37.5 to $39 million. So the total package is about $139 million. I think it would be incumbent, we're asking the school systems to adopt this resolution, asking our legislators to vote for this MFP intact, including both pieces. And we would further ask that our legislators, that our people within the community, realizing how important both pieces of this is, would contact our representatives and our senators who represent our area and ask them to be in favor of funding the K-12 MFP, because these funds would be sorely needed. So with that, we're asking the School Board Association, in conjunction with all of the education groups, are asking that the board would adopt this resolution, which I could either read now or read at the regular meeting, so choose. But that's the gist of it. What this is doing is asking to adopt the resolution and send it to all of the appropriate people to say that we are in favor of funding the proposed MFP that Bessie has put forth to the legislature.
Well, it's long overdue, Ms. Voce, long overdue. And I think I read recently where the state is collecting quite a bit more in sales taxes because of internet, being able to tax internet sales. So I'm sure they're going to have additional funds rolling in the legislature. Let's just hope we can get some of these conservative people to.
Yeah. Well, that's another fight in the legislature right now, because it seems like revenue you can't budget revenue that has not been recognized by the Revenue Estimating Conference. And this year, for the first time, and it has to be a unanimous vote of the Revenue Estimating Conference to recognize any revenue for the state in order for it to be budgeted. And for the first time, the group, there's one member of the group who refuses to ratify it, even though the state economist, Jim Richardson and such, the state economist from LSU, is recommending that it be recognized. So it's a political issue that is happening right now as to how much revenue will be recognized. If the revenue is not recognized, and there is technically no money within the budget to fund this. So that's another issue that is being dealt with in Baton Rouge. But the economy has gotten better. The tax revenue, like you said, for some of the sales tax, companies throughout the country more and more voluntarily sending the state taxes that they should have been applying, and there is an effort in place to put in a mechanism statewide to do it, mandate it, and actually collect it. And some of that, not only was that state revenue, but then the local applicable sales taxes will also then be placed on these online purchases, and the local taxes should be then sent to the communities where the purchaser resides. But all that's a little bit in the future, but the state portion is being remitted in a little higher fashion than what it was. So there are more and more companies out there, bigger companies, voluntarily complying with this.
Okay, good. Any questions? Ms. Dysart?
Ms. Voce, you mentioned one group is opposing. Which group is that?
Our more conservative group of legislators that seem to be saying that they, because there's been this groundswell about teacher pay raises, and $1,000, y'all, while it's a start, You divide that by 24 paychecks and see how much per paycheck that is, and then our
Plus
support
taxes.
people, 500. So we're not talking a major amount of money on an individual basis, but when you look at it collectively statewide, you know, it's a significant investment. And hopefully it's the first of a multi-year investment in raising teacher salaries. At least that's what the governor has indicated that he wishes to do. The issue seems to be the portion to increase the per pupil is the one that is being questioned, and the part of it that many of the more conservative representatives are talking about opposing. So if you look at the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, he's not including that in any of his projections, whereas the governor is trying to include it, and the Bessie board is trying to include it at this moment. But it's being met with resistance on the other end of, I guess, the political spectrum. So it's very important to the school system and to the community that this be funded, and we would hope that our legislators, both our representative and the senators who represent our district, would be in favor of this.
Thank you, Ms. Voce. Well, our present governor, John Bell Edwards, has always been very pro-public education, and I'm glad that he remains pro-public education. And, you know, our teachers definitely need and deserve a pay raise, and like you said, it's $1,000 per year divided by 24 minus taxes. So, you know, it's more than well-deserved, and our per pupil amount for the MFP has not increased in several years, and so, you know, I would just like to offer that we do a joint acclamation on this resolution, and that that we go ahead and pass it at the full board meeting in support of our teachers and of our students for their per pupil increase. If
Okay.
the board would wish to go in a joint acclamation.
Definitely.
And I'm glad to
Source in
see
it.
Bessie voted on this unanimously. Is that
After
what it
some-
says?
Well, there was a little bit of push and tug and all that, but
Great
then
job.
we finally prevailed. And then it was very tough for any of them to look like they were against teacher pay raises. The piece is this per pupil, and then there's an issue of early education funding, early childhood funding. That was muddying the waters. The Bessie board technically has governance not only over K-12 education, but has now taken on the birth to 5 as well. So while there is no dedicated funding at the moment for early childhood, that seems to be entering into the picture now. And the thing that I think we have to guard against and be very careful is that we're not pitting educational groups against each other. Early childhood is extremely important, K-12 is extremely important, and higher ed is extremely important. So we can't look at taking from one to give to the other. We've got to adequately fund all levels. And that seems to be where some of the friction is going to occur in the legislature in this session.
And you mentioned, Mr. Voce, about the, you know, the per pupil not being raised in so many years, but our expenses and costs
Keep
have
going up.
continued to increase, the unfunded liability and mandates that, you know, continue. So I would hope that we can all reach out to our legislative delegation and ask them to please be in favor of this too.
And you know what I like to always say at this time, I mean, sometimes the naysayers talk about the cost per pupil to educate a child. And they look at the public school system and say, well, the cost per pupil may cost you $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 on a per pupil basis. Whereas they'll look at some other entities and say, well, they can do it for 5 or 6. And what I always say is, do they provide transportation services? No. Capital expenditures? No. Do they provide all the nursing services that we're mandated to do? No. Do they provide all of these special education services that we are mandated? No. And we all know that if there's a special needs child, there are some special needs children, when you look at the cost for that one child, will run $150,000 to $200,000 for one child. By the time you put a dedicated teacher, it might be a para, you're talking about OT and PT services, you're talking about speech therapy services, and that's just skimming the surface. So it's a very unfair comparison. If you looked, what we had done in the past is, if you look apples to apples, pure educational services, we are providing educational services as less than or equal to any private sector you can find. It's the ancillary services that we are mandated to provide for students that are extremely costly services as well. So I hate when people try to argue in that way. If we looked at all children and all services that needed to be provided to everyone, it is a much more costly endeavor than into a narrow group of students. So that argument really holds no water at all when you do the comparisons.
Okay, thank you. Is that it, Mr.
It's a
Dyson?
call for joint affirmation.
Okay, do we need a second on that? I don't
You
believe
don't need
it.
that, no.
Any further discussion before we do the joint? Any questions? Okay. All in favor of joint acclamation, say yes. Four.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. England for personnel
Right, we go on
changes.
to item number 7 is personnel changes. Ms. Fauché.
You can see that we have very few personnel changes for this particular meeting. When I come at the regular April meeting, you're going to see a very long list because we are currently right in the middle of our transfer staffing, where any potential openings for next year, we have advertised it within our existing staff, and they have the opportunity to apply for opening positions for next year. So we'll see some movement at the next meeting where those transfers will take place for next August. Then subsequent to that, as we all know, because at the end of the year, as you have seen, we've had resignations and retirements and such. So once our present employees complete the transfer process, then we'll see what openings we still have, and our job fair will be on Saturday, May 18th. At that time, I'll post the openings. Potential teachers from both inside and outside of the school system can apply for those openings on that day. Our principals will be there to conduct interviews and to make selections for next school year. So from now, probably till the end of the school year, we'll see a lot of activity in the movement here. The job fair will take place at the training center at Chalmette Elementary School. Okay. And anyone who is certified and who is from outside of our school system wishes to apply, they have been contacting us. We will then look at their credentials, make sure that they have the proper credentials, and invite them to job fair, at which point they'll be interviewed at that day by the principals.
That's it, Ms. Fauché?
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Dysart, would you do the retirees, please? I know you enjoy it.
I know. We have some retirements. Sandra Johnson from Trist and Christina Abair from Davies. We want to thank them for their many years of service and wish them a very happy retirement. It's tough to see so many people retiring, but they do deserve it. And also we have Kent Tillman from Raleigh and Kathy Wallace from Trist, who are also retiring. And we wish them a very happy retirement and thank them for their years of service to our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dyson. Okay, moving on to item number 8, finance. Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mr. England. Item number 8 is requesting permission to advertise for musical instruments. The administration is requesting permission to advertise for bid for band instruments. For the St. Bernard Parish School Board, there's a growing need for musical instruments at the elementary school levels. Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, sir. In your package, you have permission to advertise for bid. This is a bid for musical instruments, as Mr. Warren just said. It's to enhance the instruments we have at elementary schools and also give us a bid list that we can use to replace other instruments that are in disrepair and need to be replaced. So we're just asking for advertisement to bid. It'll be a 1-year bid, so please approve it.
All right. Do we have any discussion? Anybody have any questions? Mr.
I'll
Long.
make a motion that we
Okay.
go out for bids for musical instruments.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Long,
Second by Mr. Smith.
second by Mr. Smith. All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor, cast your vote.
Got it. Motion passes 10-0.
All right, so we'll go to item number 9. This is a request for permission to advertise for waste disposal. Mr. Fernandez.
Also in your packet is a request for permission to advertise for bids for solid waste disposal. Current contract is coming to an end this year, so we'd like to renew it, or we'd like to advertise for bids to continue the contract. It's a 1-year bid with an option to renew for 2 additional years if we're satisfied with the service. So we'd like to issue that advertisement.
All right. Any discussion?
Make a motion that we move for
I got a motion from Mr. Smith.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. White. Mr.
question.
Long has a question.
Who's handling our waste disposal now?
Pelican Waste,
Is it
Pelican
Pelican?
Waste, yes.
Okay. And they've had it for a few years now, right?
They've, I think this is their 3rd year.
Third
So
year.
which we usually do it in 3-year cycles.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right. So I'll ask you to cast your vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
All right. Item number 10 is the 2018-2019 revised general fund and special revenue funds budget. Mr. Fernandez. Still up there?
Okay, in your packets is a proposed revision to the 2018-2019 general fund and special revenue funds budgets. There's slight revisions, and I'll just hit some of the highlights for you. Rather than going through all the detail, you have the provide you the information previously, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. But basically, what we're doing is we're revising the general fund budget. What we did was we increased some of the revenues, one in ad valorem taxes, because our assessed values went up slightly this year, so we're generating slightly more in ad valorem taxes. We also looking at our current collections and sales taxes. We're going to revise our sales tax estimates upward a little bit to reflect that. Also, it reflects the increase in the MFP allocation. As you know, every year at mid-year, they do an adjustment to the MFP allocation based on student enrollment. You could either go up or go down, depending on how your enrollment goes, and our enrollment increased slightly this year, so we're getting some more money for that. Of course, there's going to be corresponding expenses related to that for staffing and other related expenses to the increased enrollment. And also, we got a little additional MFP money for high-cost services, and that's the monies that are used to help us offset the high cost of special education services to students. In the expenditure side, we have the normal increases to reflect our final staffing in our schools. We hired some additional teachers through the year, and related benefits, and some other tweaking of some of those expenses. The lunch fund budget, which is on Exhibit 4, just revises that budget to better reflect the year-end performance of that fund. Basically, the changes in that relate basically to a little decrease in USDA commodities this year, and also increase in equipment repair costs, because as our equipment gets older, it's requiring more repairs, and we're going to be addressing that in the coming year to that situation. And finally, Exhibit 5 is the special revenue funds budgets, and all that does is it reflects the final actual allocations for all of our special funds, our major special revenue funds. So it's things that you've already seen as it were presented to the board in the past. We're just presenting the final allocations and making them official in our budget. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for anybody? Anyone?
I'd like to make a motion to send it to the full board.
Okay, we got a motion by Mr. England, send to the full board, seconded by Ms. Lemoyne. I'd like to just add that ad valorem, sales tax, MFP, all these are up. And if I'm looking at the numbers, the local taxes are up about 1.1, and then the MFP's up about 1.2. Do you know like how many students that? Do you know what the increase was for?
It's about $5,000 a student, so I don't remember the exact amount. I can have it for you for the next meeting.
Okay, if you can have that for me, and then total revenue is
There's
up.
been a couple of hundred students.
A couple of hundred students.
It was about 150 students, but the major increase was the high-cost services.
Right.
Where we wrote for and got granted for some of the excess costs that we had to provide, the excess services we had to provide for some of our higher-cost special needs students. That's where the majority of that money came.
Okay. All right. But still, the local collections are up, so that's a positive sign in our economy.
Right.
And a strong school system, I think, is driving that economy forward. So that's the only comments I have. So we have a first on by a motion by Mr. England, seconded by Ms. Lemoyne. Any other questions? Mr. Long?
One brief question or comment. I'm glad to see we still keeping a healthy fund balance, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Fernandez. It's I know for many years we tried to keep a certain percentage, correct?
Yes, sir.
on
The
fund
state
balance.
mandates a certain percentage in order to be considered a healthy school district, which is basically 10 to 15%, and we tried to even exceed that. The board knows the importance of a healthy fund balance. It did help us a lot after Hurricane Katrina. We were able to do a lot more than other people were able to do because we had maintained a healthy fund balance and were able to fund a lot of that money before we got reimbursement from FEMA. So we know the importance of maintaining a healthy fund balance.
Is there a difference between a healthy fund balance and being considered a rich parish?
Ask the bond agencies. Ask Moody's and Standard & Poor and the risk analysis the state does on us each year. So we're within a good range. We're within the accepted range. There are fiscal dialogues being done with school systems throughout the state who have not been able to maintain an adequate fund balance. And it's also important. Now, the good thing is we talked about being debt-free and that we retired all of our bonds and we've been able to build and construct our schools without going to the voters, without issuing any additional general obligation bonds and such. And that's always important. But if you do have to go, your bond ratings are extremely important. And I know both Mr. Fernandez and I, over the years, have been in lengthy conversations with the rating agencies such as Moody's and Standard & Poor to make sure that when and if we do issue bonds, that we get the more favorable rates. Otherwise, we'd be paying tremendous and much higher interest rates.
If my memory serves me right, at one time, didn't they take the so-called being a rich parish into consideration for the MFP? Is that one of the factors that went into it?
Well, the factors that go in the MFP, and it doesn't have anything to do with your fund balance. It's how much local money you can generate on a per pupil basis. So what they look at, and the two major sources of funding that locally you can use to fund your school system are property tax and sales tax. It does not take into consideration personal wealth of the people who live within your community. So for example, in the MFP formula, we look as if we're a wealthier school district than, say, a wealthier community than, say, St. Tammany. Because St. Tammany, while the personal income would be higher, their sales and property tax on a per pupil basis, what they can generate technically is not as much as we can on a per pupil basis. Not on a millage rate, because a mill for us is only, what, about 300, a little over 300,000 per mill.
47,000.
You go 307,000?
347.
47,000 at this point. And you go to Plackham and you go to Tammany, 1 mill generates, or Jefferson, a lot more money per mill. And so that's not taken into consideration in the MFP. It's just your property and sales tax on a per pupil basis. So your fund balance is more for the healthiness of your system as a whole, the value if you are issuing bonds, those determinations that the rating services would make. But the MFP doesn't take personal wealth or community wealth into consideration.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, discussion? Oh, okay, Ms. Daniels.
Mr. Fernandez, it looks like we have a new grant, the Jazz and Heritage grant.
Jazz and Heritage Grant is a grant that some of our music teachers applied for and received. I think at 3 schools, they received a few $1,000s each to do projects in that school that they applied for. I think Farrell got one, I think Arabian Elementary got one, but they apply for these grants and they're awarded to buy either instruments for their schools or do different activities at their schools. So that's something we got in the past every now and then when the teachers applied for it, and it usually was one school applying for it in the past. Now a couple of schools have gotten on the bandwagon, so.
Excuse me, congratulations to the schools for taking the effort to write the grants, because it's grant applications are pretty lengthy. So it's a great thing that they did that on their own. So congratulations to them. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, please cast your vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
Mr. England, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. Well, before we go into item number 11, superintendent's recommendations, I'd like to just take a moment of silence. We had Coach Senator passed away. Coach Senator was a good basketball coach for many years with Chalmette, and he would be sorely missed. So if we could just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Ms. Fochek.
I feel like I have to say this now that you mentioned Coach Sedetall. When I was a teacher at Shellman High School in the 70s and early 80s, and Art Sedetall was the basketball coach. There was no finer manner coach than Art Sedetall. In fact, I was out at one of our local restaurants last night, and Guy McGinnis was there and he came and sat over with me, and he said, "No, you heard about Coach Settertall, because Guy played for him. I said, yeah, he says that man had such a large influence, on his life. But all I could remember is every day I'd eat in the cafeteria. Shelmet High was an all-boys school at that time. And I'd eat in the cafeteria, and Coach Settertall would come sit right next to me and pull his napkin out and draw every play that he had from the previous game and what he was instituting the next game. Because I went to all the ball games, and I, really enjoyed sports stuff. So, but he also was such a tremendous role model for the kids and for those boys who played for him that, he's still remembered today. And I think he was 84 years old, and he passed away this weekend.
He could talk.
Oh, he could talk. If you ever had to sit down and talk with him, you better carve out an hour, and you might get 2 minutes of the hour to actually say something. You were listening the other time. So great gentleman, great man. Yeah.
We sorely miss. And
yes.
Our condolences go out to the family. So, okay, move on to item number 11, Superintendent's recommendation.
Just a few comments. I mentioned that we're having a Celebrating School Community Banquet tomorrow night. It's always a wonderful event that we honor our Teachers of the Year, Students of the Year, Parents of the Year, Volunteers of the Year, Support People of the Year, and our retirees. So it's a wonderful event. We'll have 500 people, and I think it'll be a very, very nice celebration. And that's always a great part of the year, very uplifting part of the year. Pretty soon we'll be taking our Easter break, but we're right in the midst of testing, and I've said this the last couple of meetings, we're in the testing season, which will now be basically through the end of the school year for some of our kids. So, we ask parents, just make sure that kids are coming to school every day happy and well-fed and had a good night's sleep, because they will have to be taking this wonderful state testing that we have for each of our students in such a lengthy process. And we're very fortunate that we do well each year.
I think we have too many tests.
We do. We have too many tests when you look at the amount of time it takes.
Right. Ms. Lamont.
While we're on the topic of testing, I'd be remiss if I didn't say in the audience tonight we have Miss Holly. That's one of our teachers from Chalmette Elementary School. I had the privilege of visiting their campus a few days ago for their testing pep rally. Each of the schools does an event or something special for the kids to get them motivated before testing. And I just want to give kudos to Holly and all the teachers at Chalmette Elementary. They did songs, they did skits. We have some really talented teachers. I think you all could have been on American Idol. So thank you for dressing up and having fun. And I know the kids had a great time, and I did too. So thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Ms. Lamont. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to item number 12, adjournment.
I'll make the motion. I have a right of proxy from Mr. Campbell.
Motion by Mr. Egan, second by Ms. Escobedo.
He is talking after all.
All in favor? This meeting is adjourned. Good evening. And Carly, congratulations. Glad you had them.